The silence was paralyzing, not because activity ceased, but because everything transpired and nobody anticipated it coming. 50,000 supporters vanished. Not frustrated tweets, not digital comment rants, not fleeting posts that dissolved by dawn. Actual individuals, tangible currency, authentic tickets, genuine jerseys, all of it departed in under 48 hours. This is a chronicle of how the most magnetic athlete in women's hoops became the epicenter of the grandest fan insurrection in WNBA annals. And it didn't commence with a cut. It didn't originate with a tweet. It began with a sequence. A design so muffled, so deliberate that by the instant observers noticed, the wreckage was already absolute. Caitlin Clark's identity has been omnipresent this season. Record-shattering displays, packed stadiums, viewership that forced executives rethink everything they presumed they understood about women's athletics. She wasn't merely a newcomer. She was a crusade, a societal transformation draped in a number 22 Indiana jersey. But beneath the highlights and headlines, something else was fermenting. Something sinister. You could sense it in the rotations that lacked logic. In the benching that felt targeted. In the quietude from colleagues when her reputation surfaced. In the way analysts would hesitate just a moment too long before endorsing her. Minute things, microscopic fissures, the kind of nuances casual observers overlook, but fanatics screenshot and examine at 2 o'clock in the morning. Then arrived Team USA. For months, enthusiasts had been anticipating this. The definitive vindication arc. The arena where agendas perish and ability dominates. Where the clamor dissipates and the contest prevails. Caitlin appeared modest, head down, determined. No interviews, no theatrics, just discipline. And she triumphed. Triples from the emblem. Vision that made professionals look bewildered. Defensive positioning. So sharp instructors literally paused mid-sentence to observe. This wasn't marketing. This wasn't Iowa sentimentality. This was a competitor performing at a tier that compelled everyone else adjust. Then the whistle shrieked and she was sidelined. No clarification, no medical report, no penalty trouble, just sidelined. Spectators watching the broadcast felt their spirits plummet. That recognizable nauseating sensation, the one that muttered, "Here we go again." But this instance was distinct because this time the lenses captured something. A glance, a motion, posture between trainers that suggested a verdict had already been reached before she ever stepped onto hardwood. Footages started spreading within seconds. Frame-by-frame investigations, lip readers scrutinizing sideline exchanges, and then the removals were declared. Not leaked, not rumors, formal names publicized, roles established, rotation fixed, and Caitlin Clark's status still ambiguous, still diminished, still regarded like a suspicion instead of an exclamation mark. That's when the internet detonated, but not with debates, not with arguments, with mobilization. Ticketing systems collapsed from the magnitude of reimbursement demands. Merchandise return lines at flagship outlets spanned around the block. Hashtags didn't just trend, they commanded every single top 10 position on various platforms concurrently. This wasn't a moment. This was a revolution. 50,000 followers. That statistic is an approximation. It's chronicled, monitored, authenticated by third-party metrics across ticket transactions, streaming terminations, and apparel returns in a 72-hour window. 50,000 individuals who resolved they were finished watching brilliance get insulted. But here's what nobody's discussing. Here's the segment that makes this grander than basketball. Those 50,000 fans, they weren't incidental spectators. They were season ticket owners. They were the people who appeared when arenas were nearly vacant. They were the heart, the pillar, the ones the WNBA had been struggling to establish for decades. And in one verdict, the league witnessed them depart. Not to another franchise, not to another athlete, away from the discipline entirely. The kind of attrition you don't salvage in a season. Perhaps not in a decade. Because when you inform your most steadfast fans that brilliance doesn't signify, that perspiration is insufficient. That filling stadiums and shattering records still leaves you sidelined. What signal does that transmit? Caitlin Clark never requested this. She never insisted special treatment. Never cautioned, never held the league captive. She just competed, appeared every single night, and left everything on the court. And somehow that still wasn't sufficient. The inquiry everyone's posing now isn't about basketball anymore. It's larger than rotations and lineups and managerial verdicts. The question is basic, tragic, and impossible to overlook. If Caitlin Clark can't gain dignity by doing everything correctly, what does that indicate about everyone spectating? Let's backtrack because this didn't occur instantly. And if you weren't observing closely, if you only viewed the highlights, you overlooked the indicators. The fragments that sparked to this detonation were dispersed across an entire year. Small, intentional, simple to ignore separately. Catastrophic when you align them up. It commenced in preseason. Game 3. Caitlin had just notched 28 points in 30 minutes. Accurate, disciplined, the kind of exhibition that makes front departments salivate. Post-game discussions were organized. Standard newcomer introduction material. Greet the media. Construct the brand. Except she wasn't summoned. Instead, a professional who'd scored 6 points occupied the podium. Bizarre, fans reflected, but not alarming. Not yet. Then arrived opening night. The Indiana Fever hadn't witnessed a gathering like that in years. Perhaps ever. Nearly 17,000 people crowded the arena. Caitlin Clark jerseys everywhere. The atmosphere was vibrant, legendary, the kind of climate that gives athletes tremors during warm-ups. She began the game blazing. 3 assists in the first 4 minutes. Visual awareness that had announcers tripping over their own vocabulary trying to explain it. The strategy moved like liquid. Gorgeous basketball, the kind the WNBA had been pleading casual fans to observe for years. 8 minutes into the first quarter, she was withdrawn, not for penalty trouble, not for poor defense, just rotation, except the rotation didn't cycle back. She remained for 11 straight minutes while the advantage dissolved. Spectators in the building started whispering, puzzled expressions, checked devices to see if medical news had surfaced. Nothing. When she finally entered back in, the ruin was finalized. The Fever fell by 13. And in the post-game media session, when a journalist inquired about the prolonged benching, the leader's response was ambiguous. Regulating minutes, lengthy season ahead. Next question. That idiom, regulating minutes, it would become a mantra, an apology recycled so many times it forfeited all significance. Game after game, the sequence persisted. Caitlin would command a stretch. The strategy would click. Spacing would expand. Then inexplicably she'd be sidelined during vital surges. Fourth quarter, game on the line, and the athlete the entire stadium came to observe was resting with towel over her shoulders. Supporters started monitoring it. Spreadsheets, statistical examination. Someone built a Twitter profile committed solely to chronicling her benching sequences versus her performance statistics. The digits told a chronicle that didn't make basketball sense. In matches where she competed 30-plus minutes, the Fever were 12-4. In matches where she competed fewer than 28 minutes, they were 3-11. The relationship was impossible to overlook. Yet the cycles never shifted. Other newcomers received superstar whistles, contact penalties, breathing too hard violations. But when Caitlin attacked the rim and got struck and were mentioning forearm impacts that left bruises, the whistle remained silent. Broadcasters noticed. Analysts referenced it carefully diplomatically. Supporters yelled about it. Nothing transformed. There was a game in June. Phoenix Mercury nationally broadcast. Caitlin absorbed an elbow to the jaw on a drive. Visible as day. The playback displayed it from 4 perspectives. She remained down for 15 seconds. Medical personnel rushed out. The official stood there, arms folded, no violation. Social media erupted. Retired athletes weighed in. This wasn't standard newcomer hazing. This was distinct, personal, like the regulations functioned differently for her. And not in the superstar advantage way, in the polar direction. She never protested. Not once, not in post-game dialogues, not on social media, not even the subtle subtweets that professionals utilize vent without explicitly uttering anything. She just kept competing, kept appearing, kept producing statistics that made her impossible to overlook, except she was being overlooked. Awards discussions barely mentioned her name despite leading all newcomers in numerous categories. All-star balloting momentum pieces focus on everyone except the athlete selling out stadiums. Media day segments featured seasoned players while the sport's biggest attraction did solo shooting drills in the background of B-roll reels. It felt purposeful, orchestrated, like there was an unsaid pact that Caitlin Clark required to be maintained in her place. But why? That's the inquiry that haunted fans through the entire season. What did she do incorrectly? She wasn't conceited. Didn't trash talk? Didn't create theatrics, didn't request special treatment. She was arguably the most modest icon the sport had ever witnessed. So why did it feel like the league itself was trying to obscure her light? Some indicated jealousy. Others referenced a dispute around her fame versus veteran players. A few whispered about internal agendas, about old regime versus new era, about finance and visibility and bitterness, but nobody understood for sure until Team USA camp. Because that's where the unspoken part got uttered out loud. That's where the sequence became impossible to refute. That's where everything that had been simmering beneath the surface for 8 months finally overflowed. And what transpired next didn't just rattle the basketball community, it transformed it forever. Team USA camp was envisioned to be different. A fresh beginning, clean slate, no organization agendas, no coaching grudges, no bizarre rotations that defied wisdom, just the premier athletes in the nation battling for positions on the most illustrious roster in women's basketball. Caitlin appeared on a Tuesday morning early before reporters, before lenses, just her in a gymnasium and the ring of basketball rebounding off floorboards. Competitors who were there early stated she was already soaked in perspiration by the time the formal practice began. First scrimmage, 5-on-5, active defense, genuine rivalry. And Caitlin Clark appeared like a totally distinct competitor, not superior than her WNBA version. Liberated. That's the term assistant instructors kept utilizing in hushed dialogues. She played liberated. No hesitation, no glancing over her shoulder. No waiting for authorization to command. She just competed first sequence. She took a handoff at midcourt and fired from 28 feet net, didn't break pace. Hurried back on defense like it was a layup. Second sequence, she delivered a no-look bounce pass through traffic that struck a moving colleague. Perfectly in tempo. Score third sequence. She got trapped at the arc and delivered a dime to the weak side corner without even glancing. Legends on the sideline ceased talking. Coaches ceased scribbling on their clipboards because this wasn't rookie Caitlin trying to blend. This was Iowa Caitlin. The one who averaged nearly 30 points and 9 assists. The one who made impossible seem standard. The striker who commanded March Madness matches like she was competing against youth players. She was back for 2 hours. She was the premier player on the court, not the premier rookie, not the premier marksman, the premier player, period. Scoring, playmaking, battling defensively, communicating, leading, everything you desire in a Team USA guard. Then lunch interval occurred. Players dispersed, some to the dining room, others to medical tables. Caitlin returned to the gym alone, launched 200 extra attempts. A trainer who was there mentioned she didn't fail more than 15. When the afternoon block began, something had shifted. The spirit felt different, colder. Leaders were gathered in discussion before practice initiated. Long dialogues, grave faces, the kind of posture that made players trade looks. Something was transpiring. Something had been resolved. Scrimmage 2, different squads, new pairings. Caitlin entered with the second unit. Strange but not frantic. Rotations in camp or trial. Coaches want to observe different setups. Standard material except she barely gripped the ball. Sequences would evolve and the strategy would pivot away from her. When she'd signal for it in tempo, the pass traveled elsewhere. When she cut, she'd get bypassed. It wasn't obvious. Nothing you could indicate specifically. But players who've been around Team USA before observed. This was exclusion basketball. The kind where you don't formally bench someone, you just ensure they cannot flourish. You place them in spots to struggle. Encircle them with athletes who won't share. Run sets that don't involve them. And when they don't deliver, you gesture to the box score and shrug. See, perhaps she's not prepared. 10 minutes, 3 touches, 0 attempts. She was the most lethal scorer in camp, and they handled her like a traffic cone. Supporters watching the restricted media access footage sensed it instantly. Comment sections occupied with bewilderment. Why isn't she getting the ball? Is she damaged? What am I overlooking? You weren't overlooking anything. You were witnessing exactly what was occurring. Day 2 was worse. Caitlin barely competed in the morning block. When she did, she was paired with fourth-string players in exercises built for advancement, not appraisal. Meanwhile, other guards, some who had made an all-star roster in years, were participating with the first unit. Media day arrived next. Mandatory interviews. Standard Team USA press access. Every player receives their moment with journalists. Generates excitement for the upcoming contests. Beneficial for the brand. Caitlin's block was timed for 2 p.m. prime afternoon slot, except at 1:45 it got shifted, then shifted again, then silently scrapped. Scheduling clash. They stated she was accessible. Standing right there in Team USA apparel, prepared to talk. They just resolved she wouldn't. A journalist who reported Team USA for 15 years mentioned she'd never witnessed anything like it. It felt targeted, she later composed, like someone desired to ensure her perspective wasn't part of the story. Then arrived the scrimmage that transformed everything. Full court, media permitted, lenses spinning. This was a demonstration, the session where coaches judge not just talent, but poise under stress and focus. Caitlin was added into a match already in progress. Score level. Rivalrous climate. Exactly the scenario where elite athletes display what they're about. First sequence, she received the ball on the wing. Her marker went under a screen. Gigantic error. Caitlin rose up from 26 feet score. Next sequence. She attacked a closeout, entered into the paint and delivered a floater over 2 blockers. Transition chance. She accelerated to break herself, pulled 2 markers, and hit a trailing marksman with a perfect pocket pass. Assist, simple score. 3 straight sequences, 3 straight victories. The gymnasium spirit shifted. This was what everyone arrived to witness. And then the whistle shrieked. Substitution. Caitlin out. Less than 90 seconds of match clock. She stood there for a moment, baffled, verified with the instructor. No briefing provided, just sat. The player who substituted her immediately lost the ball twice. Didn't matter. Caitlin remained on the bench. That footage went viral within the hour. Not through formal streams. Someone in the gym captured on their phone and leaked it. The basketball community watched it repeat over and over, trying to make it make sense. It didn't. And that's when the Ray All Chronicle surfaced. Not about basketball, about what was occurring behind locked doors. About why Caitlin Clark was truly being marginalized. The leak originated from inside the facility. Not a formal statement, not a press bulletin, a text message, screenshot, shared in the group thread, then shared again and again until it was everywhere. 6 words had triggered the entire scenario. She didn't vote for the strike. The WNBA was in the middle of vital CBA talks. Collective bargaining agreement. The grandest labor instance in league history. Players were unified. At least that's what everyone presumed. There were murmurs about potential work cessation. A strike. Advantage to secure better compensation, better transit, better circumstances. It necessitated alliance. Everyone on the same page, one voice, one vote. And supposedly, Caitlin Clark wasn't participating. The gossip circulated like wildfire. Player group threads, agent systems, front office whispers, and then predictably social media. Profiles with internal access started uploading enigmatic messages. Now it makes sense. Some individuals don't grasp devotion. You can't build with everyone. No names. But everyone recognized exactly who they were referencing. Caitlin's mentions became a combat zone. Supporters requested explanations. Critics labeled her a traitor. Thought pieces surfaced within hours questioning her devotion to the sorority of the league. All of this founded on an unconfirmed gossip, an unknown text, 0 formal origins. But the wreckage was finalized because in the forum of public sentiment, silence equals guilt. And Caitlin stayed quiet. No statement, no denial, no briefing. Just appeared to the next Team USA practice and kept training, which made some people more furious. Then the media day footage surfaced, the one they tried to suppress, the one where Caitlin actually had addressed the CBA talks. Briefly, precisely, someone had captured on their phone during the block that got scrapped. A journalist asked her directly, "What are your opinions on the current CBA talks?" Caitlin hesitated, picked her vocabulary meticulously. "I believe this is the grandest negotiation in WNBA history. It's incredibly vital for myself. I'm considering what's superior long-term for everyone. I want to ensure we get this correct." That's it. 30 seconds. Diplomatic, helpful, literally nothing divisive. But people perceived what they desired to perceive. Critics center on for myself in long-term. They translated it as narcissistic, as prioritizing her personal triumph over communal action. They scrutinized every term, every pause, every tone, hunting for proof that she was sabotaging the union mission. Supporters perceived something totally different. Gracious deliberation, grown perspective, someone trying to steer an impossible predicament without throwing fuel on a fire. Same vocabulary, totally different translations. And the league, they uttered nothing, didn't explain, didn't protect, didn't provide background, just let the story escalate while one of their grandest stars got attacked online. Then Kelsey Mitchell tweeted. Kelsey was Caitlin's colleague, her backcourt associate, the veteran who'd been with the Indiana Fever for years before Caitlin arrived. They'd had success together on the court. Good rapport matching games. From the exterior, everything seemed fine. The tweet was brief, enigmatic, just vague enough to preserve feasible deniability, but evident enough that everyone understood. Devotion isn't just about what transpires on the court. It's about who supports you when everything's on the line. Genuine ones understand. No tags, no names, no background. Didn't matter. Fever fans understood exactly what it signified, or presumed they did. The replies area became a combat zone. Half protecting Caitlin, half attacking her. Speculation theories expanded. Was there friction in the locker room? Had something transpired behind locked doors? Was the squad split? And more crucially, was Kelsey's tweet even about Caitlyn? Because here's what nobody was discussing in the haste to build drama. Kelsey was entering free agency. Her contract was finished. She had verdicts to reach about her destiny. Her family had been expressive on social media all year, posting about how Kelsey earned more credit, more merit, more focus. Some of those posts had subtle attacks at Caitlyn. Never explicit, always deniable, but the implication was evident. Kelsey had been supporting the Fever for years, and suddenly this newcomer appears and receives all the fame. Resentment doesn't require to be spoken to be authentic. So when Kelsey uploaded that tweet, was it about the CBA vote, about squad devotion, about contract talks, about personal emotions, about family stress? Nobody understood. Everyone presumed, and assumption became facts in the echo chamber of social media. Other athletes started liking tweets. Enigmatic, encouraging messages targeted at Kelsey. Still no names, still no direct charges, just electronic breadcrumbs that nurtured the story that Caitlin Clark had somehow abandoned the sisterhood. Angel Reese gave a discussion at the same Team USA camp. When inquired about returning to Chicago Sky, her response was significant. "I'm under contract. I suppose I intend on returning." I suppose the pause was loud. The suggestion evident. She wasn't joyful. She desired out. And her posture during Team USA practices narrated the same chronicle. Annoyed, detached, vocal in ways that pulled focus. The media consumed it up. Angel Reese unhappy in Chicago. Star Forward suggests at trade requests. Every channel reported it. Every analyst discussed it. Meanwhile, Caitlyn was being sidelined and nobody from Team USA uttered a word. The disparity was vivid. One athlete's misery became a relatable chronicle. The other athlete's brilliance became a dispute. Why? Because the story had already been scripted. Caitlyn was the antagonist. The one who didn't stand in alliance. The one who placed herself above the communal. The one who required to be taught a lesson. Ignore that none of it was validated. Ignore that there was zero proof she'd actually voted against a strike. Ignore that her entire rookie year had been a tutorial in modesty and team-first basketball. The story was too attractive, too theatrical, too perfect. And then the removals were declared. The email departed at 6:47 a.m. Eastern. Tactical timing before the dawn news cycle could accelerate properly, before athletes could harmonize responses, before agents could get ahead of the story, just a cold formal bulletin, dropping a bombshell and departing. Team USA roster verdicts have been reached, names cataloged, roles explained, the 12 athletes who would symbolize the nation on the global stage formally declared, and Caitlin Clark's name was present, technically hidden in a secondary list. Training camp attendee, alternate prospect, pending roster mobility, not cut, not validated. Limbo. The worst feasible result for someone trying to demonstrate their value because being cut is definitive. Final. You understand where you stand. You process it, mourn it, advance. But this was built to keep her suspended, accessible if required, invisible if not. The ultimate insult disguised as enchants. Fans who've been monitoring the scenario saw it instantly. This wasn't about ability appraisal. This was about transmitting a signal, maintaining the athlete who'd shamed them with undeniable brilliance in a spot where she couldn't assert success or closure, management without liability. The formal bulletin was corporate hollow. We value all attendees, tough verdicts, deep ability pool, anticipating symbolizing the nation, standard boilerplate that could apply to any roster verdict in any sport in any period. But what it didn't utter yelled louder than what it did. No reference of performance data. No credit that she'd been the premier player in multiple scrimmages. No briefing for why someone calculating her statistics would be demoted to alternate status. No openness whatsoever. Just verdicts reached in rooms nobody could enter by people who never had to answer inquiries. By 8 a.m. the hashtag commenced. Hashtag JusticeFork, hashtag Respect Caitlyn, hashtag TMU Scandal, hashtag Boycott Wimba. They didn't trend slowly, they detonated. All four reached the top 10 concurrently across multiple platforms. International viewers who'd never viewed a WNBA match in their lives were suddenly consumed in this chronicle because it wasn't just about basketball anymore, it was about equity, about brilliance being penalized, about structures shielding themselves instead of honoring merit. Global themes that surpass sports. By midday the first surge of action struck. Ticket reimbursement requests crashed the Team USA portal. Support lines were swamped. The wait time climbed past 2 hours, then 3. Then the system initiated auto-disconnecting callers. People weren't just requesting for refunds. They were asserting them loudly with justifications attached. I purchased tickets to observe Caitlin Clark. If she's not competing, I want my currency back. That phrase or variants of it surfaced thousands of times. Screen grabs spread. The consistency was vivid. This wasn't harmonized by anybody. It was natural. Thousands of separate fans independently reaching the same verdict. If you won't honor her, we won't assist you. Apparel returns followed. Jersey mailed back. Some sliced into fragments and recorded. Others ignited in footages that went viral. Team USA apparel that had been acquired in hope of watching Caitlin symbolize the nation became icons of betrayal. One footage in particular ignited. A father and child maybe 8 years old standing in their path. The girl is clutching a Team USA jersey. Caitlin's name isn't on it. They don't sell those yet, but it's evident who she acquired it for, who she desired to assist. The father explains to the Lens that they'd organized a trip to observe the matches in person. First grandfather-daughter sports memory, saved for months. The child had practiced her signature request. Practiced what she'd utter if she got to meet Caitlin. Then he provides her scissors. She slices the jersey in half, not irritably, mournfully, like she's burying something that signified to her. The footage concludes with a father saying, "We'll find someone worth admiring, but it won't be this body." 14 million views in 24 hours. The WNBA's formal social media accounts went quiet. No posts, no reactions, no attempt to get ahead of the story. Just nothing. Like if they simulated it wasn't occurring, it would vanish. It didn't vanish. By day 2, business sponsors started posing inquiries. Not openly, never openly, but phone calls were reached, emails mailed. The kind of covert pressure that actually shifts bodies. What's occurring with Caitlin Clark? Why is there a boycott? Are we linked with this dispute? How does this impact our alliance value? Money communicates, and money was suddenly very, very anxious. Internal sessions at Team USA base became daily events, crisis meetings, coaches, managers, league leaders, PR squads, everyone trying to figure how a roster verdict had become a total crisis. The metrics were crushing. Streaming memberships for Team USA exhibition matches fell 34% in 48 hours. Merchandise pre-orders plummeted. Social media interaction on formal accounts. The statistic that fuels sponsorship value failed. Every constructive post was ratioed into nothingness by fans requesting answers. Someone calculated the economic damage. Moderate guesses placed it at 8 figures. In 2 days, from one roster verdict that nobody desired to explain, and still Caitlin uttered nothing, she appeared to the next practice, applied the effort, took the reps, handled her alternate status like enchants instead an insult. Expert, determined, tranquil, at least openly. Because behind the scenes, something else was occurring. Conversations in back channels, athletes reaching out, veterans who'd observed the scenario expand and felt uneasy with what they were seeing. Not everyone concurred with how this was being managed. And one of those veterans was about to desert ranks. Her name doesn't matter, not because she's trivial, but because what she uttered signifies more than who she is. And because identifying her would place a mark on her back that she doesn't earn. She's a professional. Multiple all-star events, Olympic history, honored in locker rooms across the league, the kind of athlete young players admire and old leaders trust. And she'd had enough. The dialogue transpired in a hotel corridor. Late after formal tasks finished, a journalist she'd recognized for years, someone she trusted off the record, totally deniable, except the journalist composed it down, not to release, just to remember. And months later, when everything detonated, those notations became the most vital record in WNBA history. This isn't about basketball. That's how she initiated. Direct, no warm-up. Everyone in that stadium understands Caitlin is special. You can't watch her compete and not perceive it. The vision, the distance, the way she makes everyone around her superior. That's not opinion. That's quantifiable. The journalist asked the evident inquiry. If everyone understands, why isn't she competing? The professional paused, scanned around, ensured they were alone. Because some individuals resolved she's a menace. Not to their minutes, to their story. She entered in and did something nobody anticipated. She made people care. Casual viewers, new crowds, people who'd never view women's hoops. Suddenly attending, acquiring tickets, viewing matches, following athletes they'd never heard of, she continued. You'd imagine that would make everyone joyful. More focus means more finance, better contracts, better terms. Rising tide elevates all vessels, right? The journalist signaled. Incorrect. Because some individuals don't desire a rising tide. They desire credit for constructing the vessel. And when someone new appears and suddenly the vessel is crowded, they don't say thank you. They ask why she earns a position. This wasn't conjecture. This was someone inside the room explaining the forces that molded verdicts. The CBA material made it worse. There were talks, private dialogues about tactic, what advantage we possessed, what actions we were prepared to take. And Caitlin, she posed questions, good questions, clever questions, questions about long-term results and unintended effects. The journalist asked, what kind of questions? She desired to understand if a strike would damage the momentum we just constructed. If casual viewers who just initiated viewing would vanish if matches got scrapped. If sponsors would utilize it as an excuse to withdraw capital. She wasn't against communal action. She was asking if we analyzed through the hazards. Logical questions, the journalist hinted exactly, but logical got translated as disloyal. Asking questions became not being a squad player. And suddenly the story was that Caitlin didn't assist the union, that she only cared about herself, that she was prepared to let veteran athletes suffer so she could shield her sponsorship deals. Was any of that authentic? None of it. She never voted against anything. There wasn't even a formal balloting when most of this drama initiated. It was all staging, all agendas. People hunting for a reason to hit her down, and they found one. Invented one, whatever you want to label it. The professional's voice fell lower. What transpired at Team USA wasn't leader appraisal. It was discipline. Everyone in that gym understood she was acting at an elite tier. You don't sideline someone who's commanding scrimmages because of ability worries. You sideline them because you've already reached a verdict and you're hunting for validation. But who reached that verdict? That's the inquiry nobody desires to answer. Because it wasn't one individual. It was a system. A gathering of people who felt insecure and discovered each other. Coaches who fretted about forfeiting management. Athletes who fretted about forfeiting visibility. Leaders who fretted about forfeiting influence. All of them eyeing at Caitlin and perceiving the same thing. What did they perceive? The destiny, and they weren't prepared for it, weren't prepared to move aside for it. So, they resolved to postpone it, manage it, place her in her spot until they calculated how to handle her on their conditions. The journalist asked if Caitlin recognized any of this. She's not foolish. She senses it, but she manages it differently than anyone I've ever seen. No protesting, no demanding, no leveraging her fame to generate stress. She just labors. Shows up, acts, allows the match communicate, a pause. And that's what terrifies him most. Because you can ignore someone who throws fits. You can discredit someone who makes requests. But what do you do with someone who just persists being brilliant, who never provides you fuel, who makes you seem small just by existing? The professional moved her head. You sideline them. You diminish them. You hope nobody observes. Except 50,000 people observed, and now nobody understands what to do. The journalist asked one last inquiry. What transpires next? Two paths. They can apologize, restore her correctly, admit that errors were made. Let her gain what she's already gained. Or they can persist, protect egos, let this thing ignite until there's nothing left to rescue. Which one was more probable? The professional chuckled, but there was no fun in it. I've been in this league a long duration. I've never seen anybody in influence admit they were incorrect. Not once. Not about anything, so I understand which path I'd gamble on. She initiated walking away, then paused, pivoted back. Tell people what you witnessed when the timing is correct. Because someone requires to understand the truth, even if it's too late to transform anything. The journalist maintained those notations for months until the removals were declared, until the boycott detonated, until the truth became impossible to obscure. And then finally she released. The report appeared at midnight. No preview, no teaser posts, no prior alert to provide PR squads time to organize reactions, just a link, a title, and thousands of terms that transformed everything. Inside Team USA, the actual reason Caitlin Clark was marginalized. Within an hour, it had crashed the outlet servers twice. By morning, it was the most consumed sports report of the year. By afternoon, mainstream news channels were reporting it. Not sports desks, news desks. The kind of reporting reserved for scandals that surpass athletics. The unknown professional's narrative was the core. But the journalist had done more than just record a dialogue. She validated, found others prepared to confirm fragments of a story, secured internal dialogues that painted a vision of harmonized exclusion, emails between leader staff discussing managing the Caitlin scenario, text chains where leaders argued how much visibility is too much visibility, session notations referencing brand equilibrium and veteran merit worries. None of it explicitly said, let's ruin her career. They're too clever for that. But the total effect was damning. A paper path of small verdicts, Each one separately justifiable that together revealed a systematic effort to restrict someone's triumph. The basketball community split instantly. Retired athletes separated into factions. Some defended the regime. Every newcomer has earned their position. You can't just provide someone a starting role because they're famous. Squad rapport signifies more than personal talent. Others perceived through the evasion. I viewed every minute of her film. She earned it 10 times over since when is being too superior issue. This isn't about rapport. This is about management. Current athletes were more cautious. Most uttered nothing. The ones who spoke picked terms that could be read multiple ways. Nobody desired to end up on the wrong side of whoever emerged of this with influence. But the fans were finished being cautious. The boycott entered its second stage. Not just reimbursements and returns anymore. Systematic action, harmonized efforts. Someone built a site monitoring every sponsor linked with Team USA and the WNBA. Complete with contact details, email patterns, phone scripts. Inform them why you're not acquiring their items. Inform them what it would take to gain your patronage back. Make them sense the price of staying quiet. Within 72 hours, 3 mid-tier sponsors had silently requested their icons be pulled from marketing materials. Not scrapped contracts. Not yet. Just gap. The corporate version of slowly retreating toward the exit while pretending everything is fine. Major sponsors publicized carefully phrased bulletins. We're observing the scenario. We trust the league to resolve worries. Our devotion to women's athletics stays robust. Translation, we're terrified. We don't understand which way this travels. We're waiting to see who triumphs before we select a side. The league finally reacted. A media conference. Not the commissioner herself. She was inaccessible. But a senior vice president of communications. The kind of voice bodies utilize when they desire to say something without actually saying anything. He stood at a stand with the WNBA icon behind him. Read from organized remarks. We value the passion of our fans. We grasp there are inquiries. We want to guarantee everyone that roster verdicts are made solely on basketball merit. The appraisal method is extensive, equitable, and centered entirely on constructing the best possible squad. A journalist interrupted. Then why was Caitlin Clark sidelined during scrimmages where she was clearly outcompeting other athletes? The voice blinked. This wasn't in the plan. Roster appraisal involves many forces beyond single scrimmage displays. We look at rapport, defensive flexibility, background, and high-pressure global rivalry. She acted in the highest-pressure college matches in history. She shattered NCAA records. What more background does she require? I'm not going to remark on specific athlete appraisals. Next question. Another journalist entered in. Can you address the leaked emails arguing managing the Caitlin scenario? I'm not aware of any leaked emails. They were released this morning. Are you stating you haven't seen the report that's currently the most read piece on the internet? Long pause. The voice's face hardened. I'm not going to remark on unconfirmed reporting founded on unknown sources. We support our appraisal method. Will there be an internal probe? Our methods are always under examination. We're committed to steady improvement. Is that a yes or a no? Thank you. That's all the time we have. He walked off the stand. Inquiries still being yelled, lenses still spinning. The footage of his non-answers became almost as viral as the original report. Because when you refuse to refute something specific, people presume it's authentic. And when you escape from follow-up inquiries, people presume you're concealing something. The pressure grew. Congressional aides, yes, congressional, started making calls. Title IX effects, federal capital for athletic schemes, inquiries about bias and equitable treatment in sports receiving public aid. Nothing formal, just investigative dialogues that made league attorneys very, very anxious. Retired athletes with massive reaches weighed in. Not WNBA athletes. Grander names that surpass any single sport. Legends who understood what it signified to watch brilliance get penalized. One tweet from a Hall of Famer with 20 million fans pivoted the entire dialogue. I've witnessed this before. Different period, different scenarios, same strategy. They attempted it with me too. It doesn't function forever. Truth has a way of emerging. Stand robust at Caitlin Clark 22. Genuine ones detect genuine. The suggested comparison was volcanic. Here was someone globally honored, someone beyond assault, essentially saying, what's occurred to Caitlin is what occurred to the greatest players in history. And still, through all of it, Caitlin uttered nothing. No interviews, no bulletins, no social media reactions, just appeared to every organized task, participated in every drill, handled her alternate status with the same professionalism she'd displayed all year. But something was distinct now. The silence had pivoted from defensive to tactical because when your rivals are ruining themselves, the cleverest thing you can do is let them. The session happened on a Thursday. A marked boardroom. No lenses, no devices permitted inside, just 8 people around a table who managed the destiny of American women's hoops. League leaders, Team USA leaders, one delegate from the Players Union, and a crisis management expert who billed $15,000 a day. They had flown him in from New York that dawn, first class, because the digits on the monitor in front of them were terrifying. Viewership forecasts for upcoming Team USA matches had fallen 41% since the dispute initiated. Ticket sales for exhibition games were moving 60% below targets. Social media mood examination showed the league's brand view had entered what the expert called reputation plunge. "You're not forfeiting fans," he explained, pointing to a chart that seemed like a ski slope. "You're building enemies. That's distinct. Fans who depart can return. Enemies actively labor against you. They persuade others to depart. They applaud your defeats. They magnify every error you make for years." He pressed to the next frame. "Right now, you're producing approximately 12,000 new enemies per day. At this speed, by the time the matches actually initiate, you'll have a dedicated resistance larger than your staying fan base." Quietness around the table. The economic effects are vital. Sponsor trust is fading. 2 major alliance renewals are now formally under examination, which is corporate language for "we're looking for paths." 3 others have requested backup planning sessions. In my history, when sponsors start utilizing the term contingency, they're already mentally departed. He paused, let it absorb. The Caitlin Clark scenario isn't a PR issue you can spin your way out of. It's an honor issue. And honor, once forfeited, costs 10 times more to reconstruct than it costs to maintain. An executive spoke up defensive. "We reached legitimate basketball verdicts. Roster setup is complex. You can't just." The expert stopped him. "I'm not here to judge your basketball verdicts. I'm here to tell you the effects. And the effects are that 50,000 people and counting believe you're frauds. They believe you penalize a player for being too successful. They believe there's a harmonized effort to sabotage someone who earns better. And here's the issue." He pressed to another frame, screen grabs, social media posts, the leaked emails, the unknown professional quotes. They have proof. Perhaps not final proof. Perhaps not courtroom proof, but enough proof that the story has weight. Enough proof that neutral watchers are questioning your honor. Enough proof that every denial you release makes you seem worse, not better. Another executive entered in. "So what do? We can't just surrender to crowd pressure. That establishes an awful precedent." The expert grinned. "It wasn't warm. You're already surrendering. You're just surrendering to the wrong side. Right now, you're shielding whoever reached these verdicts, whoever composed those emails, whoever built the scenario. You're burning body honor to shield individuals. Is that really the swap you want to make?" No one reacted. Because here's what transpires if you don't track correct. The matches happen. Caitlin either competes minimally or not at all. Every second she's sidelined, the lenses will find her. Every failed shot by someone who took her position will be compared to her stats. Every defeat and defeats are coming because your lineup isn't as robust as it should be will be accused on this verdict. He stood up, moved to the glass, looked out at the town, and when the year ends, you'll have a selection. You can let her move to another league. And yes, global offers are already coming in. I validated that independently, or you can spend the next decade observing her reconstruct American women's hoops from outside your system, making you seem foolish by contrast. Every match. He pivoted back to face them. Or he let the term wait. Or you can get ahead of this. Admit that appraisal methods aren't perfect. Declare that Caitlin has earned widened focus. Give her real minutes in exhibition matches. Let her performance communicate for itself. And silently, privately figure out who in this body built this disaster and make sure they're nowhere near a microphone. The union delegate spoke for the first time. "The athletes won't like seeing someone get special treatment because of fan stress." The expert chuckled. Half the athletes in this league are observing their jersey sales vanish because casual fans are boycotting everything linked with you. The athletes who are clever, and most of them are clever, understand that Caitlin triumph elevates all vessels. The only athletes who have a problem are the ones who built this scenario. And honorably, those are the athletes you should be least worried about shielding. An executive pushed back. "We can't just flip course. We'll seem weak. You already seem weak. Weak and small. Flipping course makes you seem responsive. Which would you rather be?" The session continued for another 2 hours. Arguments, counter-arguments, local defenses, tactical calculations, all the malfunction that influential bodies focus in. But something had shifted. The digits were undeniable. The path was evident. The price to stay a course had been measured and it was devastating. By the end of the session, a verdict had been reached. Not unitedly, not happily, not with any credit that errors had transpired, but reached regardless. Caitlin Clark's status would be re-evaluated. A media conference would be organized, the story would initiate to shift, except the fans weren't finished yet. Because 50,000 people had departed on principle, and principle doesn't return just because you say you're sorry. The media conference was organized for Friday at 2 p.m. prime afternoon slot. Peak media access. Enough duration to reach the evening news block, the sports talk programs, the weekend recap shows. The league had understood something from the disaster of their last public show. This time the commissioner herself would communicate. No more concealing behind voices. The layout was intentional. American flag behind the stand. Team USA branding noticeable but not crushing. A carefully varied group of leaders organized in the back. Everything built to project harmony, devotion, body trust. The leader walked out exactly on schedule. Navy outfit, calm look, the kind of skilled poise that costs hundreds of hours with media instructors to perfect. She initiated with organized remarks. Thank you all for being here. Over the past several days, there's been vital debate about our Team USA appraisal method and specifically about one athlete who has seized the focus and passion of fans across the nation. A pause, gaze with lenses. We've heard you loudly and clearly, and we want to resolve your worries directly. The room tightened. Journalists prepared their follow-up inquiries. This was either going to be a real credit or another task in corporate evasion. Everyone waited to see which. Caitlin Clark is in rare ability. Her performance during training camp proved exactly why she'd become one of the most thrilling players in basketball. Her vision, shooting skill, and rivalrous spirit were on full display. She surpassed targets in multiple appraisal tiers. Another pause, longer this time. After extra examination, we've resolved to lift her status from alternate prospect to active lineup. She will receive vital minutes in our upcoming exhibition matches and will be fully fused into our primary rotation strategy. Whispers through the room. This was more than anticipated. Not just a vague re-examination, an actual pledge, actual details. We acknowledge that our dialogue about the appraisal method could have been superior. We grasped that fans felt doubtful about verdicts that seemed to refute on-court performance. Advancing, we're committed to greater openness about how roster setup functions and why specific verdicts are made. She looked directly into the main lens. To Caitlin's fans specifically, we hear you. Your passion for this athlete mirrors exactly the kind of bond we desire in women's basketball. We're thankful for that passion. Even when it's targeted at us harshly, it shows you care, and caring is what constructs the sport. A journalist entered in before she could persist. Commissioner, do you admit that errors were made in how Caitlin was handled during camp? The leader's look didn't shift. Perfect poise. I admit that the view built by our method was damaging. Whether that view matched truth is something we'll persist to judge internally, but view signifies and we failed to handle it correctly. Another journalist, what about the leaked emails arguing managing the Caitlin scenario? Were those authentic? I'm not going to remark on items secured through unofficial paths. What I will utter is that we're performing a deep internal examination of all dialogues linked to roster verdicts. If unfit forces guided any appraisal, we'll resolve that directly. Will anyone be sacked? Staff verdicts are made privately. But liability signifies to this body. If the examination displays behavior inconsistent with our beliefs, there will be results. Another journalist pushed. The boycott has cost the league vital revenue. What's your message to the 50,000 fans who departed in protest? The leader took a breath. This was an inquiry she organized for most carefully. My message is basic. Please return. But I grasp that trust once forfeited must be reconstructed through actions, not terms. We're taking actions. Caitlin will compete. She'll have every chance to battle at the highest tier. And over time, I hope our verdicts will prove that we've understood from this history. What about Caitlin herself? Have you spoken with her directly? I spoke with Caitlin this dawn. She was polite, expert, and centered entirely on basketball. She didn't ask for apologies or briefings. She asked what our practice initiates. That informs you everything you require to understand about her spirit. The media conference persisted for another 20 minutes. More inquiries, more careful responses, more attempts to pull admissions that wouldn't come, but the title was evident. Caitlin Clark was on a lineup. Really on it. Not in name only, not as a symbolic motion. Pledged minutes, cycle fusion, the full chance she'd earned from the start. Social media mood was complex. Some fans honored. We succeeded. Stress functions. Never let them inform you your voice doesn't signify. Others were doubtful. Terms are cheap. Let's see what transpires when matches initiate. Let's see if she actually competes. Let's see if they discover new paths to ruin her. And some were still irate. They didn't apologize. Not really. They didn't name anyone accountable. They didn't explain what transpired. This is wreckage management, not liability. All three reactions were legitimate because the truth was somewhere in the center. The league had moved. Not because they desired to, because they had to. Because 50,000 people had made the price of inaction higher than the price of transformation. But had anything actually transformed? Or had the system simply tuned its tactics, understood to conceal better, discovered new paths to achieve old goals? That inquiry wouldn't be answered by media conferences. It would be answered on the court. And the first exhibition match was 72 hours away. 72 hours felt like an eternity. Every sports talk show analyzed the media conference. Every podcast studied the posture. Every social media forum debated whether the league's change was real or artificial. Opinions hardened into camps, trust versus doubt, mercy versus alertness. But none of it signified yet because basketball is the only debate that can't be spun. The exhibition match was organized for Sunday evening, prime hour, national stream. The arena had sold out within hours of the leader's bulletin. Not just sold out, oversold. Secondary market prices detonated. Seats had been accessible for $40 were now traveling for $400. Everyone desired to witness history or dispute or validation. Nobody was certain which they'd secure. Caitlin arrived at the stadium 4 hours early. Same habit she tracked her entire career. Shoot solo, envision, stretch, find quiet before the gale. A janitor who'd labored at the stadium for 30 years said he'd never seen a player more focused. She seemed like she was organized for war, he told journalists later, but tranquil about it, like she'd already resolved she was going to win. Warm-ups initiated 90 minutes before start. The stadium was already half-packed, rare for warm-ups. But these fans weren't incidental. They'd come early specifically to observe her. Every shot she took pulled reactions. Every successful shot ignited applause. Every motion was recorded by thousands of devices. She didn't credit any of it. Just labored. Orderly, exact. Attempt after attempt, falling through the hoop with the rhythm of machine set for brilliance. Start approached. The opening lineup was declared. Caitlin Clark, starting lead guard, Team USA. The stadium detonated. Not polite applause. Not honored credit. Detonation. The kind of noise that makes your torso shake. The kind of communal relief that only transpires when thousands of people have been clutching their breath for weeks and finally secure authorization to breathe. She moved to center hardwood. Same look she always wore. Determined, present, tranquil by the clamor around her. The match initiated. First sequence, Team USA. Caitlin moved the ball up. The defense retreated, daring her to fire. The same insult she'd faced all season. The same belief that she wouldn't penalize them for it. She rose from 28 feet net. The stadium lost its spirit. Second sequence. Pick and roll. She cracked the defense. Drew the help, delivered a perfect bounce pass to a moving colleague. Simple score. Third sequence. Transition. She urged the pace, detected a mismatch, attacked the hoop, finished through contact and one free shot good. 3 sequences, 7 points, 2 assists, total command. The rival coach called break. In the circle, Caitlin's colleagues encircled her. Not with bitterness, not with resentment, with energy. The kind of power that spreads when someone is competing at a tier that lifts everyone around them. This wasn't about personal stats anymore. This was about proving a point that no media conference could reach. The match persisted. Caitlin competed 32 minutes, most on the squad by selection of the leaders. The same leaders who'd sideline her during camp. The same leaders who questioned whether she was prepared. Final stats, 24 points, 11 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 0 turnovers in 32 minutes of global rivalry against expert defenders specifically planning to halt her. She didn't lose the ball once. Team USA triumphed by 23. Post-game discussions were mandatory. The first inquiry went straight to the point. Caitlin, you just had one of the premier displays in Team USA exhibition history. How does it feel after everything that transpired? She grinned. The first real grin anyone had seen from her in weeks. Feels like basketball. I came here to compete basketball tonight. I got to compete basketball. Everything else is just clamor. Another journalist urged harder. Do you feel validated? After the benching, the dispute, the fan boycott, she paused, picked her terms carefully. I feel thankful for the fans who trusted in me, for the colleagues who embraced me, for the leaders who gave me a chance tonight. I don't spend power on validation. I spend power on getting superior. What's your message to the 50,000 fans who departed in protest? Caitlin looked directly into the lens, speaking to them specifically, the ones who'd offered currency and emotion on her behalf. The ones who pivoted personal irritation into communal action. Thank you. I understand what you did. I understand what at price. And I pledge I will never cease working to be worthy of that assist. Tonight was for you. Every night is for you. We're just getting initiated. The footage went viral within minutes because it wasn't just an answer. It was a pact, a link between an athlete and her people that surpassed anybody trying to manage it. And in living rooms and sports lounges and bedroom screens across the nation, fans who departed started asking themselves an inquiry. Perhaps it was hour to return. Not because the league earned it. Not because trust had been fully fixed, but because Caitlin Clark had made them a pledge. And she'd never shattered one yet. Epilogue. The boycott formally ended the following week. Not with a bulletin, not with a harmonized campaign, just thousands of separate verdicts reached independently by people who'd seen enough. Ticket sales salvaged, merchandise moved, ratings climbed, but something had transformed eternally. The league grasped now in a way they never had before that fans weren't passive buyers. They were associates. They possessed influence. They could construct you up or destroy you down based on how you handled the people they loved. Caitlin Clark went on to have a legendary global campaign. Every match she competed vital minutes. Every match she acted at an elite tier. Every match she proved that the skeptics had been incorrect all along. The internal examination the leader pledged it silently ended 3 months later. 2 staff members were shifted other chances. No names publicized. No public liability. But insiders said the signal was received. Don't ever do that again. As for Caitlin, she never openly addressed the dispute again. Never gave discussions about the agendas. Never composed a tell-all or dropped signals in podcasts. She just competed season after year. Brilliance without asterisks. Years later, when chronicles were made about this period of women's hoops, experts would indicate to this moment as the pivot. Not because of what the league did, but because of what fans did. 50,000 people who said enough. 50,000 people who proved that devotion has limits. 50,000 people who asserted that brilliance be honored. And one player who never ceased earning it.